All right. Well, since I've got you in such a good mood, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not for Broadcast. We are fresh off of our trip to Raleigh, North Carolina. We just had a great event, I would say. It was maybe the games themselves weren't the best, but I would say the event was pretty top tier. Would you agree with that, Avery?
Yeah, it was a great event.
Okay, fantastic.
I mean, it was. It's one of the more fun lands I've been to in a long time. I wish they were longer, but what can you do?
Yeah, all these ESL ones are only a week long, which is kind of a pain in the ass. For those of you guys who don't know, it's like the commentators get paid for per day. We get what's called a day rate. And so when you work an event that's a longer event, it's great, like Dream Leagues. But ESL ones are only a week long, and one of them a year is in Southeast Asia. So comparatively, trip wise, flying to Sweden and doing 2 weeks of work versus flying to Southeast Asia and only doing 1 week of work. The Dream League is a much better event for that regard. But that's kind of how she goes. ESL 1 was very well set up, I would say. We were in a hotel that was right across the street from the venue, so we could literally walk to the venue whenever we wanted. It was also in downtown Raleigh. I assume because it's fucking Raleigh, so they didn't have to cheap out and take one of those venues that are way outside of town. We got to be in the center of Raleigh, so there was a bunch of food options all around. All in all, really nice accommodations. Crowd was great. Crowd was better than I expected. And by that I mean attendance wise. It was actually, the stadium was pretty packed most of the days, most of the time.
Yeah, that was. What do you want me to say, man? You explained it all.
What do you want to talk about then?
I mean, the event was great. Jack KBBQ Chen played Vampire Survivors for like 50 hours in the talent lounge because Tidebound got eliminated early, and he had
Also because they also speak English.
Yes. The crowd filled day one. That was impressive.
Yep.
That's not the case at a lot of European lands. So, point on the board for North America, so-called dead region, lol. And I got to see a bunch of people. That was pretty cool. Like almost everybody from NA was there.
Yeah,
It's just a very smooth event.
We saw a lot of like local NA people, but then there was also, I feel like, about anywhere between like 70-80% of the people that I spoke to, it was their first LAN event they'd ever been to. In fact, most people, and only a few exceptions, said that they'd only been to like one other LAN, which was like one couple had been Birmingham. A number of people said they went to a TI. They went to one of them, Vancouver, Seattle, one of them, one time, but they weren't like regulars or anything. So it was, I think a lot of people saw it as an opportunity to go to a LAN when they never had done so before, because they may not get another chance, which a lot of people asked me about Raleigh returning more North American lands. Hopefully that can happen. I mean, I feel like the reception for this event was really good, but there's a lot of factors when it comes down to where these LAN events are happening, and one of the biggest ones is like the city / country that you go to, the like tourism board, if they are offering any money or incentives for events to be at the place it's at, which would, I believe, is entirely the case for this one at Raleigh. So it's entirely possible that they make an equal offer next year or the year after that. So we'll see. So all of you NA Copium land goers, maybe we'll see a few more of those. But I don't know how you felt about it, but I felt like this land was a little special. It was a little special for me anyway. I felt like I went the extra mile to really make sure that like people enjoyed themselves, because again, we're not sure if we're going to come back. So
Yeah, I feel that. I tried extra hard to talk to people.
So you talked to
I'm
10
sure
people
they
instead of
noticed.
5?
I talked to a lot of people, actually. I mean, I feel like most of the stuff we did was successful. I don't know. It's just a good LAN. I don't really have like some crazy opinion on it. Uh, honestly, I came into this episode with a very different idea, so of what I wanted to talk about.
Okay,
So you're
what
throwing
did
me
you
off.
want to talk
Well,
about?
I wanted to talk about to some degree content, because there's a lot of content thieves out there. And I've been watching a lot of other Dota podcasts, and people are talking about Dota podcasts. And I noticed there's this podcast, All Chat, and in this podcast, they have repeatedly ranked our power rankings without permission.
Uh-huh.
And this kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm out here grinding the grind, trying to make a fucking living for myself, doing God's work, working the field, growing the crops so that
Uh-huh.
something may flourish. And I don't know, it just feels a little weird to have someone come in. So I thought, in the spirit of that, because apparently you can just do that and it's very successsul. I thought in the
Well,
spirit of that,
you can do that, because if you are successful enough in the things that you say, what they do is they end up in the zeitgeist, right? They end up in the
yeah,
public
yeah,
conversation,
yeah, I agree.
and
I agree.
obviously people want to have that conversation.
I agree, Austin. I
As
agree.
we have done so, how many times have you talked about something that they have talked about on We Say Things because somebody asked about it?
I agree,
right?
Austin. And that's why I want to do an all chat episode power ranking. We're going to power rank all the episodes of your other podcast to tier list them and determine which were the best ones and which were the worst. Because I think then you can go talk about that. What do you think about that idea, Austin?
I think it's a great idea. I love cross promotions.
Anyway, so I personally have ranked all 32 of your episodes here. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I did not do that. But I hope I conveyed my point, which is fuck off. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not cool. I met Insania there. This guy had a fucking look in his eye, like he knows what he's doing. Quinn spat on me. Didn't even, this guy, he doesn't even want to talk to me anymore. This is out of control. That's my point. That's all I had to say. All right, I'm done.
You're saying Quinn stole your content and then spat on you afterwards.
Well, I don't know if it was intentional, but
Uh-huh.
Anyway, that's all I had to say. We can move on. I have something else to propose.
Okay.
I think it might be an interesting topic to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I have thought about proposing analyst information to certain teams in the scene.
What?
What do you mean, what?
Yeah, elaborate? What?
Well, I don't want to talk about specifics, but I think there is a lack of understanding in the difference in the metas of why the European teams are beating all the other regions.
Okay.
So if I can offer the ability to help teams from other regions close that gap, I think it would be cool and good for the scene. What do you think about this? This is not me offering it on this podcast. This is me discussing,
Are you discussing the possibility of you going and coaching any team that is not European to take down the Europeans?
No, not coach full time. I'm not like quitting my job.
Yeah, I understand
it's not
that.
A public
I mean,
resignation.
especially since you need to help out so many teams, you can only do it.
Basically, historically, if you look at a lot of teams, I think there's been very few coaches / analysts that have helped a team from outside their region. This is my actual discussion point. And I think I have always thought about how valuable it would be, but at the same time, there's a lot of barriers you have to cross to make it useful. So it's kind of like a catch-22, like in theory, the guy from another region has a very different viewpoint on the game that would help you explore different ways to play the game and maybe bridge some of the gaps or have a better understanding of how to play against your opponents or adapt your own game. But at the same time, regions tend to be, I don't know, for lack of a better word, information locked. Like they don't trust or put long-term faith in people from other regions or ideas from other regions, even if they're beating them. It just never has happened. Like it's very rare you hear of players switching regions in general. It's very rare you hear of a coach switching regions and being successful. In terms of going from a like winning region to a losing region, you can always go from a losing region to a winning region, a la the Attendee, right?
Yes. I mean, isn't that just more that I actually disagree with that. I think that Attendee is an outlier. He's just a coach who worked really hard and took a very long time to prove himself to get to a tier 1 level, and it took
I
certain
agree.
risks,
But
right?
my argument is, if you flip it, if Attendee was a European coach, could a
Yeah.
European coach go to a South American team and make them a winning team?
I think he would be more likely to do that. Yes.
Really? So
Yes.
if I took Blitz or CY or fucking, I don't know, Kuro, or who's another top tier coach in Europe, you know,
AUI, etc.
yeah, AUI. If I took one of those and I put them on a Southeast Asian team or a South American team or a Chinese team, do you think they would be able to push that team to the top?
I think they are more likely to do so than the other way around. 100%.
Why? Why do you think that?
A number of reasons. First of all, getting the team to buy in on what the coach is saying, espousing, right? In order to get them to do that, they have to really believe in this person. Are you more likely to believe somebody who's from a strong region or a weak region? Right? It doesn't matter who the person is. The person from the stronger region, if they are exactly the same, is going to have just inherently just a little bit more credentials behind him, right? So more likely the team is going to buy into what he's saying, right? If you come from a weak region and you start bringing some stuff, you're going to have to actually back up what you're saying more, which maybe is its own like really long-term advantage. But I would say from the get-go, the stronger region coach is definitely going to be getting players to believe in what he's saying initially more. So there's one. There's two, where like legitimately the information that he has is more likely to be better, right? Because he's operating off of what a stronger region, what they have figured out, right? Are you disagreeing with any of this? You feel I look at you like you're disagreeing with it.
No, I mean that's my theory, is that in theory it's better. But my point is, historically it's never really worked.
Okay, but how often has that actually happened?
Almost never.
We have NA players gone to like C, right? NA players, coaches, whatever, gone to C. We've had Eastern European players go to C.
I feel like
Mag coached a C team at some point.
I mean, I lump in captains as well, because I think that's majority been the case. For a lot of Dota history, there hasn't been that many coaches in general. There haven't been that many. So like, I'm including a captain / leader with strong ideas that goes to another region and tries to build a team. And I think that's happened a lot in C. I think the two bigger ones were like Demon went to TNC back in the day and then got kicked. And then you had Fly go to C for like 6 months and then effectively get kicked. You had Misery go to South America for like that half a year.
Yeah, and that team actually succeeded though.
Yeah, a little bit. And then until they got the international LAN, and then they couldn't compete.
I mean, they competed at that one ESL one Birmingham, right? They got third or something.
What? When did that happen?
Didn't that Pain Gaming? It was like a single elimination. Yeah, one of the ESL one Birminghams was a single elimination playoff, and I think they weren't they in top 4? And there was like a third place match or something like that.
It's kind of looking it up or what?
I mean, I'm going to, yeah, but
whatever. It's irrelevant.
Okay. I mean, either way, I would say Misery was at least moderately successful. Fly is the only one that I will accept as like, yeah, that didn't work. I'm not going to accept Demon. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm just knowing fucking Jimmy Ho. I'm just not going to accept him as like a good example of like
Whatever,
somebody
dude.
from a strong region, quote unquote strong region. Again, Fly is the only person, because Dima was also coming from NA to Southeast Asia, which I would argue were kind of on par at that time. Okay. Misery going to South America, that's definitely a player from a stronger region going to a weaker region. But I would say that they actually kind of, they dominated at least the South American region. So Fly's the only one that I'll really accept as an example.
Whatever, man.
And
this
I would
whole
say
discussion,
then that's just potentially an outlier.
Whatever. Fuck this whole discussion. That's not my point. My point is, I'm going to look into this, and I think it'd be an interesting topic for future podcasts as well. If I can talk a little bit about it publicly facing, if it happens, it's an interesting opportunity. That's all.
So to be clear about this, you are going to talk to other teams in other regions?
No. I'm currently proposing to a team right now, in a sense.
For you or for somebody else?
No, for me.
Okay. So
I'm trying not to be specific because I don't want to
Yes, I get it, but like you could be vague, but I at least need to know what the fuck we're being vague about. All right. So you potentially being like an analyst for a team outside of the European
yes,
regions.
but not like a full-time analyst.
Yeah.
Not
just like
Japs,
a temporary,
right?
I'm going to help you out one
like
off.
Here are written proposals on certain meta ideas or drafting or whatever that team is interested in to potentially help them better understand how European teams are thinking and operating about the game. And then they can make their own deductions from that and decide what to do with the information, right? I'm not telling them how to play. I'm just telling them a different point of view that might help them get out of the interregional bubble.
Right.
That's my point.
I just think it would be a better test if we actually sent them a good analyst.
Well, I mean, you got to have a baseline somewhere. You got to start out.
Like, why didn't you? Have they not talked to Synderen? I'm confused.
I think he turned it down. Honestly.
Okay.
I have unique connections, Austin. That's where this is coming from.
I see.
So not everybody has those kind of connections. Synderen, he's playing World of Warcraft. He's semi-retired. It's not as glamorous as it used to be. I'm in the mix, brother. I'm in like the scuffle with the dirt and the mire. And I've been in that for years. That has a certain appeal to it.
Okay, legitimately, I will say that I think you would be a very good case study for this, because I think you actually are very knowledgeable, yada, yada, yada. I will say that you're not coming from the strong region, though. Right?
Effectively, I am.
You think talent is Europe? I would say, like, from their perspective, from the perspective of the team buying into what you're saying, you played in NA. Do you think that basically you've been so public facing, you've said enough about the game that they effectively have already kind of bought in?
I don't think they have to buy it. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just it's like a consultant, right?
Sure.
Again, I'm not going in there and looking at their gameplay and telling them how to fix something. I'm going in and offering them ideas about the way they think about the game relative to how top European teams think about the game, right? How does a top European team think about rotating a mid and doing it compared to their region, right?
Okay.
What are the differences there? Where it comes from? How do they draft around that? What are they looking to pick in a given meta? Maybe what's strong because of that, and then you use that information to do whatever the fuck you want. So it doesn't matter if they think I'm personally good or whatever. It just matters if they think I have access to that information, either through my own knowledge or knowledge that I've gained from analyzing the scene for the last 4 years and talking to all these European players and teams, right? That's kind of the point.
Okay, I think you are smarter than most other coaches and analysts. I will say that right now. But why can't these guys get the information themselves? Why is their region so region locked when they have access to almost all the same stuff that you do?
Well, in theory, every team can get this information.
Right.
So then why isn't every team equally as good?
Well, I guess that's. I mean, these guys are professionally paid players that I know. Like,
so why isn't every
pretty good salaries?
So why isn't every professionally paid team top tier? You think it's just only skill diff?
No, well, I, I'm legitimately asking you, why the fuck can't they figure this out themselves?
I don't think it's about figuring it out. It's like sometimes you just get stuck in ruts, I guess, or you overthink certain things and you diminish the value of other things. So you're aware of them, but they don't seem as important.
Hmm.
Like for example, I feel like for the longest time, NA just overdeveloped the laning phase and ignored mid game a lot. Is a very
Okay.
generic answer, but it wasn't that people in NA didn't know how to play mid game or they didn't think about it, but they just felt it wasn't as important. And in hindsight, it was way more important. So they didn't develop it as much. Whereas Europe developed the mid game and the team fighting a lot more than NA. If someone had come in and told me that and then said, like, here are the ways that Europe is currently developing their mid game that is superior to North America, that would have been valuable. The flip side would have been if someone went to these European teams and said, like, you're demolishing these teams in the mid game, but NA is ahead of you in terms of just raw laning. And here's some of the small stuff they do in terms of raw laning that is winning them lanes consistently against you. That would have been valuable, I think.
Okay, I can see that. But you came up in an era where there was at least relative parity between regions.
Yeah, and now there's
Now
not.
we're in a time period where there is no parity whatsoever. It is just Europe, 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 Europe.
Exactly. So
So
that I would argue that means that the gap is larger.
but isn't it in a way easier because it's like instead of looking at North America for laning and figuring out what Southeast Asia and China is doing and what do they drafting over there, you only have to look at one region. You only have to look at like a handful of teams. You know who the best are and you can just study them.
Okay, but like Dota's not that simple. Like you can't just study a replay and then you just gain everything from it and then you just go to your team and you make your team better. And then if it were that easy and that straightforward, every team would be equally top tier team. There would be no advantage from information or meta development.
I agree. There would be no position for coaches, right? And that's what like a full-time coach is supposed to help enable you to do is constantly be updating on what
among
teams
other things
are and learning on those things. I
among
guess
other things.
I just I am struggling to see why a one-off sort of deal. Like how much do you think this would actually help the team percent points wise?
Well, it's not necessarily a one-off. I mean, this can be
Okay.
meta specific too,
Yeah.
right? Like here, I mean, it's some of it is like scout and analyst work.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the laning combinations or laning mechanics that have been developed in the last month in this patch. Here's like the carry priority that these European teams are playing with because they value this priority for this reason, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Some of it could be a perspective. Like a certain region could value heroes differently because they play a different way, and that's fine. But then I can say, here are like the heroes that Europe values, and you should be aware of why they value them so that either you can objectively counter it or understand that it's strong for them, even if it's not necessarily strong for your playstyle.
Okay. So you're doing this, or you're proposing to do
Yes,
this.
I'm in the middle of like constructing a proposal for it. But
Did this
there's
conversation come
mutual
up after
interest.
Raleigh or
There's
before
mutual
Raleigh?
interest. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Did this happen before Raleigh or after Raleigh?
It was like during/after, kind of.
Okay, because we had this conversation in the Q&A, right? And that Q&A got written up on Reddit.
Yeah, it made me think more about it.
That's right. So I was curious if
it's always been very
somebody asking that question is what basically led to this outcome.
I mean, also, I just think it's always something that's been very interesting to me, and I'm not doing it to like make money or something. I'm doing it because I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting theory project, you know, like how it would work. Maybe it will fucking hurt them. I don't know. Like nobody knows, but I assume it won't. I think it's pretty hard to hurt somebody just by giving them things to think about.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you answered my percentage wise. How much do you think that this can help a team?
I mean, I think percent is irrelevant because like it doesn't take that much percent to change you from a last place team to a top 3, honestly.
Okay.
Right? Like if you win, I don't know, if you're winning 45% of your games, you're going to be last place at the LAN. If you're winning 55%, you might be top 3.
Yeah.
And then what percentage changes that 10% win rate? It might be like 5% more efficient gameplay, right? 5 to 6% more efficient gameplay can lead to 2 or 3 extra wins, which is the difference in 2 or 3 series. Like, it's not, we're talking about minutia here anyway. So I think percentages are relevant. I think it can significantly help if you are like, ideas are very valuable in Dota. And also the way people present ideas is almost more valuable because it can get you to think about something in a different or new way, even if you already understand the concept. This is why, like, shared or passed down information. I know you guys talked about this at some point. Like Insania talked about it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
About there existed a point in time where the only way to learn how to play top tier Dota was to like play with higher ranked people, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
puppies of the world. And it's shifted a little bit, but there's still some truth in that. And I honestly don't think it was because they were the only ones who knew things. I think the other component was they were very good at articulating those things and getting new players to understand them very fast. So there's a lot of value in that.
I
Like,
mean,
people
I would
underrate
also say
communication.
that the articulation combined with, again, the player believing what they're being told,
Well,
right?
yeah, obviously
Because
you
this
have
is
to
a
believe.
person who has expertise and has a high rank,
Yeah,
et
of
cetera,
course.
right?
But if they think I'm a fucking dumbass and don't know anything, then like they're not gonna.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about this
The
situation,
thing
but yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
exist anyway, right? Like, I think also different teams have different levels of buy-in to ideas in general. Some teams are very open to new ideas and diversity, and
Mm-hmm.
like, they'll listen to a 3K MMR guy's idea of how to play a map and consider it. Whereas some teams are like, nope, you're not even getting in the door.
Sure.
Obviously, there's some difference there. Some teams are more humble than others, and some teams are willing to change their ideas more or are more aware of their ideas, so they're more malleable. So those types of teams are easier for an analyst or a coach to come in and work with, as opposed to the teams that are more rigid and don't even understand or don't have the self awareness of why they're doing things a certain way at all. Obviously, that's like a tougher situation, which I think there are a lot of teams like that, and I think it is something that plagues some of the weaker regions too. I think a lot of the weaker region teams aren't as malleable as they think they are.
Hmm. Okay. Um, Following up this line of thought, which teams do you think are actually, not to be too mean about it, but salvageable? What teams out there do you look at right now and be like, oh, they're actually like on the cusp? I would say Nigma. Nigma is the first team that comes to mind where
Yeah.
I immediately think, obviously, they showcase time and time again, actually, a couple lands now that they have showcased that they actually can hang with the bigger teams, but things really seem to just fall apart. And I'm not smart enough, knowledgeable enough about the game to say exactly what that is, but I can at least see that things like they're not operating the way that the European teams are, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would be closing out some of these games that they have advantages in.
Yeah. I mean, Nigma's a very peculiar case because I honestly don't even really want to talk about that team because their situation is so particular uh, because of Kuroki and who he is and the
Okay,
buy-in that exists with that it's like
sure.
not even, honestly, not even worth discussing because it's just like you can't do anything with, like, there's nothing you can do. They do have an analyst right now, who I think is a very smart guy, who is changing some things in that team. But I know from firsthand experience, it's very difficult to change things in that team because of the way the hierarchy is set up. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I talked to Curl way back in the day about coaching them, and my biggest concern in coaching that team, it never went through, but for probably other reasons. But internally, one of my biggest concerns about coaching that team was, even if I go in there, can I even change anything?
Sure.
I had a lot of doubt, like, whether that was even true, and especially because I didn't, like, they had no reason to buy in or believe in me at the time. I had like almost no resume, so it wasn't necessarily on me, on them or me, but that was a big concern. I think that concern still exists. And like, Kuro's still drafting for them. If you talk to any of their players, they're still like, this guy is the go captain, we believe in him. Like, that's just
Mm-hmm.
not going to change. And so I argue they're a very non-malleable team. Like, they're a very rigid team in terms of where the ideas come from in the generation. they're basically generating and using ideas from the same source that they have been generating and using ideas for like the past 5 or 6 years, right? And that's a very difficult thing to grow on. It takes a lot of time and a lot of humbleness and openness, which I'm not saying they don't necessarily have, but it's a very difficult situation generally. Um, the opposite, I think, is like Liquid. Like, I think Liquid will literally take ideas from anyone and anywhere and incorporate them quickly if they see the merit in them, which is why they have like 8 coaches and 10 support staff and 6 analysts, and even like steal ideas from BSJ. I know has talked at certain points about like he will talk them about ideas, and like I'm sure a lot of teams would dismiss Brian um, more than Liquid will, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they'll just play it like the carry DK talked about or some shit. So like I think they're a very malleable team. They're very humble and willing to listen to people. So you have these two types of extremes. So in terms of what teams are salvageable, I think a lot of teams.
I guess I don't really. Malleability is like so close to personality and like who is coaching the team and et cetera, et cetera. I guess I was more so curious, like, what teams out there do you think have potential more so than
are just ranking wise on the line?
Yeah, like what teams from other regions outside of the European region are you like, oh, that can actually challenge the European hierarchy?
So I think Shopify has been at different points. I don't know about this exact roster because honestly, I just don't think they have the stability right now. But I think if you look at the players that have been in that team over the last year and a half or two, right, going back to like RTZ when he left, I think different versions of that Shopify roster have been. I think if you look at SA, I think this heroic roster is. I think this heroic roster is quite skilled, and I think they
are very good, right? Yuma, Analog, Whisper, Matthew,
and I think they
KJ.
could benefit a lot by buying into some more European ideas about how to play the game and controlling it a bit more, right? Even if that hurts their innate style, I think over the long term it would push them more. I think if you look at C, I think C is like the hardest right now because again the teams are just like fucking all over the place, and I don't have a lot of faith in their ability to buy in. But assuming they did, I think I would honestly have faith with almost any team with Abed on it. I think you have a chance just because of how skilled that guy is. Like you will be able to mechanically compete with the European teams. So I think there is at least one team there that you can construct. I don't know if it's any constructed right now, but I think if you put Abed in there with like, I don't know, a good support duo, then in theory you can start cooking something. All right. Like I think
why do you still have faith in Abed?
I mean, he's a proven entity. He's incredibly consistent and reliable, and every time he plays, he's still very mechanically good. So maybe there's like some motivation or some environment issues, but I still would pick him over any other C mid. Like your only other argument is Makoto, and I think Makoto is a perfectly valid option. It's just higher risk, higher reward.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that's like what you need out of a C team. You know, I think they're already high risk, high reward. So it's kind of just like, okay, you know, yeah, I think also C losing. I think C will continue to lose some of their better players, and that will also hurt them. We've already seen it with Whitemon, for example. We saw it with Nothing to Say. We saw it with Ollie. I think is like he's like considered going back and forth. So like you lose one or two of these guys, it really hurts your scene because some of these guys are like really important building blocks for some of these teams. You know, imagine you had a C team right now that's like Abed, Whitemon, like prime Tims. I don't know, you know, like it suddenly looks extremely competitive, but the talent gets dispersed. So I'm gonna lump in some team there. We talked about Nigma from Middle East. I think another team that would have fit that is the team that basically OG poached, which was, you know, ATF, BZM, Crystallis, etc. Right? Like that.
Okay, you're talking about old creep wave.
Yeah, like that amalgamation of players easily could have been there.
Yeah.
And I think China currently has like 2 or 3, depending on the buy-in.
You actually think China has enough? You think they actually have multiple teams?
I think they basically have like 2.5, 1.5 to 2.5. You know.
Okay.
I think Tidebound is very stable right now. I think, and I expect that roster to basically stay together through TI. I think the current, like, whatever you want to call it, extreme gaming or whatever, the Ame stack basically, right?
Yeah,
I think that's also kind of stable going into this TI. But that's where like the half point comes in. And then I do think there is a third stack you could build that would be good enough to be in this fringe zone skill wise, but would obviously be very far down the track in terms of reliability and ability to buy into like a foreign analyst rate.
Right. There's the new Yakult brothers,
Right.
which is Fly, Emo, JT, PYW, Ollie. So again, taken from Southeast Asia.
Exactly. And I think the players on that stack are quite good. But again, then you're basically you're just going down the rung in terms of like, well, are they going to be together in 3 months? Are they going to have a solid coach? Are they going to have an actual strategy? Like, who the fuck knows, right? So that's why I'm like 1.5 to 2.5. I don't fucking know.
Okay.
But if you add all that up, I think, what is that? That's like 6 or 7 teams. And that's 6 or 7 teams that are competing against 6 or 7 top European teams.
Europe versus the field.
Yeah, you're going to take Europe every time right now. That's the issue. But even if you could push one of those teams up 1 or 2 series in a tournament, that's all it takes, right? You're suddenly going from last in a lot of these events to like 6th to 3rd.
Do you feel is there a snowball effect from that? Like the better you do at LAN, maybe the more scrims you get with top tier teams.
Oh yeah, for sure.
More exposure to ideas, that sort of thing.
I mean, the more you win, in theory, the easier it is to win until your team breaks down internally. Okay. Which inevitably happens. But that's like not a thing you can really control that easily. You can, but we haven't really seen anybody really do it because there's no actual management in Dota, which is, I think, the lever that has to control it. Like, you need an outside force that can pull the plug at the right time and reset.
What do you mean pull the plug?
Because inevitably every team will break down over time.
Yeah. So do you mean changing out players, or do you mean like stopping them from competing for a month?
No, you are basically maintaining and overseeing how to sustain that team until it is unsustainable, and then you pull that instantly. The problem is players will wait too long. So either A or B happens. Either A, the team doesn't know how to sustain it as long, so your lifespan of that roster is shorter than it should be, right? Maybe you get 2 years out of the roster instead of 4. That's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't know how to sustain it, but you prolong the life because you're afraid of change. In which case you see rosters burn out after 1.5 or 2 years, and then they have a really bad 3rd year. And then they kick the guy. Where in reality, it should be like, we just won our 8th lane in a row. We're already noticing some of these trends. We're kicking this guy and already starting like the rebuild while people are still, in a good state and motivated, and you already have a good chunk of the roster that's good, right?
Okay.
But that's like
so
an almost unjustifiable decision in esports, even though it's a very justifiable decision in traditional sports. Though in traditional sports, it still gets a huge amount of flack because it's very hard to justify kicking people from a winning roster, even if in the long run it makes sense. Like, people get punished basically for making a decision to kick someone from a winning roster, but almost nobody gets equal amount of punish for letting a roster decay for a year and then kicking the guy. Because then it's justifiable, right? It's like, oh, well, now they suck, so obviously they should kick this dude. Right. But in theory,
so Gaming Gladiator should have kicked Duraccio sooner. Right? Kuro was correct in kicking Matumba Man. Like,
potentially, yes.
The outcome was there, right? The next year, they actually went to the finals with Weehaw. And Kuro has explicitly talked about what you were saying in a way, and that like change needed to happen. And Matumba Man, like, culturally, he was just like the outlier, right?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. Like, we don't know what would have happened, but that is a decision that a lot of people give Kuro shit for, even though it worked out. Because it's like, well, Matumba was a go-to player and you're winning. Like, why would you kick him? But what if they had gone on the next year and gotten like 12th at TI because the decay
just kept limping along? Yeah,
it wouldn't have been good for anybody, right? But like, you can't know that. But he has to make that read, and I don't think that is a bad decision inherently to make, even though it's a very hard one to judge and one you will always get shit for, even if it works out, which it did. You still get shit. So it's like, someone's making that decision knowing that it's not an easy one to make.
So do you think that Liquid, an example of they have not kicked anybody, right? But they have had to have roster changes every year. Do you think that has prolonged the longevity of that roster, having to basically cycle out from Matema Man to Zai to Saberlight, et cetera, et cetera?
I think it has helped them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because like it resets the bounce, it resets the expectations, and you can literally wipe the slate. Like every time you get a new offlaner, you can be like, all right, the last 8 times we lost a game in the finals, that was with this other guy, but now we got this
Yeah.
new guy, so it's going to change. Like literally, your mentality is so much better and different, right? You're going to this TI and it's not the same roster, so like our chances have to be better because it's just a different roster. So like when you start winning, all of a sudden you believe in it more. And you reset relationships too, because people are now going to focus their emotional and relationship energy on bringing this new guy into the team instead of fighting the old people. So
Okay.
you bury more hatchets, and this prolongs the life of a team. It doesn't necessarily get rid of those things without like proper psychology, but will prolong the team. And that core has been together for a very fucking long time now.
Give you one more example.
They also keep adding coaches. That also helps because then you can like, I'm not memeing. Like you can literally just offload more emotional energy or blame, quote unquote, or whatever, or optimistic new hopes onto this new guy. Right.
Okay.
Like we're not going to be the same team playing the same way because we got this fucking new guy in here. It's like, woo.
Okay.
May not even be
last
true.
example of this, Team Spirit, right? Win TI next year, suck a TI, kick, get new player, win TI, go to next TI, not win, kick. We're entering into the third cycle and potentially the 5th year of Spirit going to a TI, and perhaps them being able to win and be the first team to win 3 times. And it's a pretty straightforward cycle of just like one person getting looped out somewhere out there and being replaced by someone frankly better, maybe at this point in time. I think Rue for Mira, like you can't say that Rue is better than Mira, but he certainly has proved that he can be on that level. And I think Laurel has certainly proved that he took over Toronto Tokyo's spot. And I think he has been a much better addition for that squad. I think that squad is much better now than they were at TI time.
I think the Toronto Tokyo kick was in this vein 100%. I think it was a inner team decision about this guy is not on an upward trajectory. We don't want to invest in him, and he has some bad traits that clash with us, which doesn't make him a bad player or he's not capable of winning. He's obviously a TI champion and he's incredibly good, but like you have to make that call, and it worked out for them, right? The Rue for Mira one's a little different because it's hard to know the psychology of him in particular. I think he's still a very good player, and he's a very humble player, so I doubt there was like internal conflict. But it does help Spirit that it's a different roster. Like it's going to remotivate people. It's going to give breath of fresh air. It doesn't even matter if Rue is as good. It's just he'll bring a different play style, different ideas. It'll force the team to think about the game in a new way to adapt to him, and that will be a benefit. And they'll go into TI very confident. And I think if you look at it at this point in time, they're already like a top 3 favorite, right?
Yeah. Though
so
they may have dropped from a 1 or 2 place favorite down a slot because they did not perform at ESL1 Raleigh, looping it all the way back to Raleigh. Got there in the end. 3-1 by Parivision in the finals, and frankly, I think the one that Spirit got was a freebie. If I can be so bold as to call it that, I think Parivision gave them one.
I think Spirit just outdrafted themselves in 3 games. I'm gonna be honest. Like I think they're so outdrafted in 3 out of 4 of those games.
Back to back to go down 0-2 against Parivision was a choice for sure.
I understand what they were trying to do, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it did not work.
Do you think they would have done that at a TI final? Do you think they did that because it's like this is in a way a practice final for the upcoming important tournaments?
I don't think they view it like that at all.
Okay.
I think they literally just had an idea of how to beat the prominent supports of the meta, and they wanted to challenge that because if you can beat it game 1, your draft advantage for the series is like fucking ginormous.
Yes, like but game win. 2? I'm saying I feel like a higher pressure tournament, you don't go back to that same draft.
I think they're a team that's just very confident that they don't want to abandon their ideas quickly, which I
Okay.
kind of respect at the same time. Um, like they're confident enough that it was an executional error and not an idea error, which I think is fair. I think there was some executional errors. I just think, like, I think their ideas make sense, and I think there are other teams that could have won with that style of draft. But against Pari Vision, it's very difficult because Pari Vision will adapt to either play fast or slow and will out tempo you. Like, I don't think
Mhm.
Pari Vision is a team you want to do that against, and I don't think Spirit is the team that wants to play that way. So you're just getting devalued at both ends of the strap, basically. Like, that's
Yeah.
why it flopped. But there definitely could have been matchups where that idea worked against the Ancient Apparition because they were saying you're going to have AA and like go fuck yourself. It's going to have no value in the game, which was true. They're literally playing Terrorblade Medusas, like two cores that do not care about this guy at all. He's literally irrelevant. So you're getting a 5-on-4 in the game. Like that's the idea, at least, you know?
Yeah.
And that is like a very valid idea. And I think there are some teams and matchups where it would have crushed them. If you played against a slower team that was more farm heavy with the A instead of skirmish heavy, it would have been better. And if it was a team like I think if Pari Vision had played Spirit's draft, they would have executed it better than Spirit did because they play better with the farm heavy push side laners, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
So it's like it's a very weird situation where I don't actually think the idea is that bad, but it just looks really bad in the end. But I think if Spirit just draft to match the tempo in any of the drafts, they're probably going to win that series at least 50-50. I think Pari Vision would highly disagree, but like you have attrition advantage because they played 3 games in lower bracket. You have a confidence advantage because your team Spirit in a grand final. You have like very good adaptability. I don't know. I also think they were kind of just playing bad. Like there was just some bad mistakes in some of the games. And I think even they would say that. So maybe they were not going to win that series no matter what because of like a skill diff on the day. But yeah, it was a little surprising that they went that route. I'm not sure where it came from. I think maybe they just overthought it. Because the game 3, I think that's how you just draft against Pari Vision like every game. I don't think you have to actually overthink it. I think you just have to make sure that you can fight from a very early point in the game and force them into fighting you. I think it's a very valid strategy.
Okay. And by force them into fighting, um, you mean that the Tinker part where you felt like that covers the ghost shove angle that Pari Vision
Oh yeah,
tends
Tinker's
to utilize?
amazing. Tinker plus skirmish is amazing versus that team. You have no
Yeah.
map issues, and you constantly they have to fight you because they can't just rat you forever. Like there's no end goal. You're gonna lose at 30 minutes high ground push. I mean, the way you fuck them is you just play Quinn Dota. Honestly,
Was it? Can you elaborate on that?
fucking trialing this no one guy mid. Like honestly, you're just fucking trialing this guy, and I feel like your win percentage goes up like 20%.
Do you feel like no one was the MVP?
I'm not saying he's MVP, but like he is the tempo for that team. They will not get it from anybody else. Their 2 side laners are way more farm heavy. So if you shut down the mid, you will always force them to have to fight you, I think. As long as your side laners can like stand independently. I mean, that's always like a part of Quinn Dota, but
Yeah.
like assuming assuming DM is not like solo killing your carry with a Brewmaster's lane. If the 2 side lanes are just training farm and you're trialing mid, I think you'll beat that team a lot of the time because like they have no one else to really fight around. Like DM is not collapse, right? This DM is not going to play Mars or Sand King and like drag the team fights back from the mid game.
Mm-hmm.
He will outscale you. He will outshove the map. He will outplay you in a macro sense, but he will not like out skirmish you. I think in a lot of those situations. So like I don't know. I think the one game Spirit demolished them was like the Monkey King mid got shut down and they just could never fight, and then they're just ratting the map, but there's no win condition in this ratting.
Okay.
Like you just need to deal with the lanes and trialing this guy mid, and I think your win chance goes up a lot. It's actually a shame Gaiman sucks dick right now because I would like to see them versus Pari Vision. I think it'd be a very interesting matchup. The problem is they're just playing bad, like, so it doesn't matter. They're going to lose because they're just getting outplayed. But I think conceptually, it's very interesting.
That's a team that forces you to fight.
Yeah,
When
100%.
they're good, they force you to fight.
Yeah, like, and they buy auras, so like that team fight is not easy. And if you look at Parivision, they like this DM guy is not a guaranteed aura buyer. He will buy auras, but they're like he's buying auras to scale. He's not buying them because they're like using it the way Gaiman does. I think
Sure.
the
Yeah,
way they
I can
beat
see
you
what you're saying.
fast, the way they beat you and go higher on 25, 30 minutes is because no one snowballs. That's when they win early. Not because their offlaner buys 3 ores and they're down, but they still just push you. I've never seen Parivision push when they're down or it's like even. They will just rat until they hit a timing and they feel stronger, and then they will like try and fight. You know?
Right.
But there's never like a we gotta go, we buy the ores, we're roshing with the Huskar, we're going high ground, we gotta do it now. There's none of that. They never play with that kind of pressure on them, which is totally valid and fine. But like if you put them in a position where they have to fight you because you're forcing the tempo, you're pushing the advantage, you have a 25-minute high ground with an Aegis Huskar. It's not a fun position for them to be in, especially if you have some like Tinker or Furion that just cleans up the waves while you do it. Then they're really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I would largely agree with that. I think the results of Raleigh echoed some of the things that we talked about. I felt like Parivision, you didn't say that no one was the MVP. And I think I kind of struggled to call out the MVP of Parivision for this tournament because of the fact that I think you said that they're a very good team. You know what I mean? You said that together there is no like real standout player from this squad. Obviously, most people would point to Satanic because of the hype around this kid, but they just seem to be a team that functions really well around each other. And it feels like we saw that in their run here at Raleigh because 9 Class was giving them a huge draft advantage. I feel like for most of this tournament with his Slurks and Ringmasters and the shit that he was doing. The TB game, maybe, aside, but like everything else, he was giving them a massive draft advantage and doing something that no other 4 position was giving. So he was an incredibly unique tool for this event. He usually is a little unique as a 4 position, but I feel like this was one of his most standout tournaments for sure.
Yeah,
and
played
then
really well.
We talked about Satanic as our ranking of carries. Why we would list Satanic highly.
I put him 2. I put him over Yatoro. Vindicated. Vindicated in my decision ahead of Yatoro.
Yeah, and I put him as number 1. Why? Because the versatility, right? And when they needed that versatility, he came out clutch. Lower bracket final, down 0-1 against Tundra. Pulls out the safe lane Beastmaster, a la Ame, right? And just runs over that fucking game. And then he's still, rocking hard carries when you need to, right? They can pick DM Medusa, or excuse me, they can pick Medusa Beastmaster, right? And they can have carry Medusa or carry Beastmaster. And, DM obviously is playing the other side of it, right? So that combination between the 1 and 3, I think definitely was a pretty potent tool drafting wise that Steeney had for them.
I think he was MVP, by the way. I don't think it's close.
Which one? Satanic?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he was MVP of the tournament. And
Why?
I think this guy just lived up to expectation. He played equally as well under a grand final pressure as anything else. This is his first LAN win as well. That's an extra amount of pressure on you of like, am I actually a LAN winning player? He's like fucking 16 or something, right? This kid is incredibly young. There's not a lot of players that have performed as well as he has under the biggest spotlight so soon in your career that young. And like he owned, dude. Like I looked to like the last game in that grand final, the TA game. He just dumpstered that game. He had a perfect game, I think, right? He was like 11-0 or something.
Yeah,
just
14-0-4.
Yeah, just fucking annihilated this game. Like there's a lot of carries that would have a death or 2 in that game, and it would be like, oh, maybe they can come back. This guy just plays flawless. He plays a flawless game, demolishes the arguably best team in the world at that point, the best carry player. Like Yatoro is the one giving up bad pickoffs, not him, right? And you would expect it to be the other way around. And I think it's very easy to just overlook that because the expectations for this kid are already so fucking high. But like, Jesus Christ, this guy is actually insane. And he just shat on him, dude. He just straight shat on him, gets a LAN win. is like, okay, now the monkey's off the back so fucking soon. So now the expectations are going to go up again. So like, give credit where it's due. This guy's MVP. It's not even close.
And he did it while all chatting too. Now we've got you got
Yeah,
a question mark. Now
Satanic.
you can't beat Satanic.
Right, and he won. So like,
He won.
there's a lot of innate pressure in that situation. So yeah, I think it's a well-deserved MVP. I think the only other argument would be like 9 class, because I think he did have a really standout tournament and applied a lot of weird pressure to a lot of teams and did a lot of weird shit, and a lot of it worked. Some of it always isn't, but like, man, he did some work that event too. So shout out to them. I still think Poshka's a beast, but you know, what can you do? That team too heavy for a 5 position god.
Yeah, can we just say that like Satanic? I don't know if this is like what is it, Dorian Gray, like the painting sort of deal or what, but like did Satanic just sap away Yatoro's strength? This was the worst I've ever seen Yatoro
He did not look
certainly
good
in a grand final, possibly in any match I've ever seen from him, and Satanic killed it. So
I'll tell you what it is though. I genuinely think some of it was like having collapse on farmers instead of playmakers. Like, I think it indirectly hurts Yatoro a lot. I think it hurts his like read of how the map's behaving, and I think he was probably off anyway. But I really hate that team when they have to put collapse on these farmers, dude. Like when I see him on Terrorblade and Medusa, I'm just like, oh, come on, dude.
I mean, they are, at least in some ways, both those heroes are supposed to get information for you, even if they're not starting fights, right? Medusa in particular is supposed to get a lot of information because it's always pushing into a tower, right?
But it's just they don't set up the fights the same way. They don't set up the map in the same way. It's like you go into this fight, and instead of some Mars Sand King axe jumping the enemy carry, and then Yatoro comes in, it's like someone's just getting jumped. Or like like I feel like that game too, like Yatoro's getting jumped on this Medusa because he has to frontline, and Collapse is just running around the fight as a Terrorblade, can't even sunder the guy because he's a fucking Medusa, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening here? I'd be so frustrated
of dyssynergy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
to have Terrorblade Medusa.
But imagine he's like any jump stunner, like he normally is, or a Magnus or something, and then they just smoke. Mag goes in, RP skewers like enemy fucking carry into the Dusa and use Stone Gaze. It's like, then you can use those Dusa strength. Instead, he has to walk in and get gone on to like be the front line for his offlane Terrorblade. It's just so fucking weird for that team. I'm telling you, it's like, I'm not saying they aren't skilled enough to pull it off and win games with it, and obviously there's some meta strength with it. These heroes are strong, but like, I'm sure it feels weird. And the bigger point in that is, like, is this meta shifting that way for TI? Could really hurt them. Like, I think this like farm heavy side laner shit is not necessarily that good for them in particular, compared to the Paravisions and the like.
I mean, weirdly enough, you would always say Falcons is supposed to be one of the teams, but they do not seem to be succeeding.
They had a stand-in though
with this.
I think the stand-in does change a lot for this tournament.
I think, of course, the stand-in always changes things, but like they did get their hands on one of the best stand-ins that they could. And my understanding talking to players is that they felt like they played like trash.
I agree, but I also think the offlane pool is really bad for them too in a weird way. Like,
yes, that's what I was more leading to, right?
What the fuck is ATF?
There is more farming heroes, but they're not ATF heroes.
Yeah, he doesn't play, like, he's not going to play Medusa or Terrorblade. I mean, maybe he will, but is it even that good of a use of his skill set? I don't know. Like, it feels like some of these offlaners are just so not hero dependent, but the percentage shifts considerably if the pool is not in their favor and it's to the favor of somebody else. Like, you look at Ace, like, is Ace doing anything in this meta? Like, who the fuck know? Probably not, like, there's no fucking, he was like kind of doing some more actually, because Tidehunter came back and they were just spamming Tidehunter every game. And I was watching this and I'm like, this is such like a crutch, right? Because it's like, at the same time, you should obviously use your strengths, but you can't just be like sucking dick for a year and then like, now we're going to play Tide Underlord every game and then you're magically good and be confident in that. Like, there's no way I could run a team like that. I would just be like, I couldn't sleep, I'd just be praying to God that Ice Frog patches the game in my favor. So if you're that dependent. So like, they kind of have some success, but just because he's spamming Tidehunter. And it's like, if he doesn't have Tide, Underlord, Centaur, whatever, he's useless. Is that what we're at? And then if Collapse doesn't have like Magnus, Mars, Sand King, Axe, is he like just useless compared to other offlaners? And if 33 doesn't have, maybe 33 is like the most immune, honestly, because he has like maybe 10 or 12 heroes that he's super confident on.
Yes,
But
I would say of the offlaner list and like where they fit in metas, I feel like 33 is the person who I'm most confident can blend
he'll find
into
something.
the most amount of metas. Right?
He just has too many heroes that he's proficient on. It's like it's very hard to nerf that guy out. Right? He can play slow or fast. He can play auras or greed. It's like you can't nerf everything that guy plays. I don't know, but it feels like all these other offlaners are pretty like hero dependent. Like I bet even DM is pretty hero dependent. Like if you got rid of some of his like prime heroes,
I think
right?
he is pretty meta dependent. It's why I had him like third on that list, right, of offlaners, because I felt like he was in his wheelhouse. And in a way, I think he's still in his wheelhouse. Well, you know, does that change before we have TI hit?
Big question. I don't fucking know. If it does, you better be making sacrifices at the Oracle. That's all I'll tell you. Like these teams better be lining up the goats right now because it's about to get real fucking rough for one of them. Like I guarantee you, one of them's gonna get fucked because you can't satisfy all these, right?
So I feel like in the past,
spin the wheel.
These teams and their success meta wise, I think was more dependent, or we talked more about it at least, about the carry, right? Aggressive carries versus farming carries, right? Yatoro versus Duraccio. Do you feel like this meta is more offlaner dependent, I guess? Or the teams are more offlaner dependent?
I wouldn't say dependent. I could buy an argument that the largest win change between teams comes from the effectiveness of the offlaners.
Okay.
I could buy that. I don't know how you'd back it up with stats, but I could. My heart would be willing to believe that. You know,
It's
like
kind of what I
you
feel
have
anyway.
ATF first 33 and the meta is shifted towards 33, your win chance in that series probably goes up the most compared to any of the other roles, right? Like I think the meta shifting towards Crystallis versus Skeeters, like who the fuck cares? Like, you know, if Razor is better than Dragon Knight, like whatever, bro. I refuse to believe that is shifting the series. But if like Doom Visage Beast are prime versus Mars Timber Saw Viper, like brother, that's gotta be like a 10 to 15% shift, right? All right, like there's no fucking way. That's literally just like a first ban series meta defining shift compared to like Alchemist, Razor, Bloodseeker. Like they're just it's not the same. So yeah, I'd say the win change has to be the largest in these offlaner pools for sure. Which is why having 33 is super valuable because it's pretty hard to get a favorable shift against that guy, right? Like really hard actually. I'm not even sure who in the scene would. Like I legit don't even know. Maybe DM because DM has all these fucking weird ass niche heroes like the Veno and the like the Veno Enigma Brewmaster. But like, is it that big versus 33's Brewmaster or 33's Enigma? Like, not really. You know, it'd have to be some really weird shit. Otherwise, I don't know who. I legit do not know who would have a favorable shift against that guy. Probably Collapse. Actually, now I think about it. He is probably the number one because if the meta goes
team fighting, initiating heroes, like Collapse is just the number one.
If the meta becomes Magnus Mars, top 2 first pick, that hurts 33. That's his like one. Like I don't think I've ever seen him play Mars. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know what the fuck that looks like, but it's probably not great. And Collapse is like a god on those, so that is probably the worst shift. But is that going to happen? I don't fucking know. I mean, that's just a gamble, you know. That's a fucking wild card. But I'd be pretty confident with 33.
He's played 8 games of Mars, and he hasn't played it since 2021.
Yeah, so I'm saying there's no fucking way you can play that hero. So like, if the Collapse definitely has the highest win share versus 33 due to meta shift for sure. Their pools are not that aligned.
Yeah, he's played 20 games of Magnus, hasn't played it since 2023.
Yeah.
What's another prime collapse hero?
Axe. There's no way 33 plays Axe.
Axe.
He is like a 0 cosmetic Axe player for sure. He is a bronze level 0 cosmetic Axe player.
29 games of Axe, hasn't played it since 2023.
Yeah, there's no fucking way, dude. You just can't see it. Unless Axe is like, they bring back Necrobook. He plays like Necrobook Axe with like Crimson. Like, I don't know, but there's no fucking way. So
Centaur, he hasn't played it since 2021.
Yeah, he just doesn't play these guys.
A lot of these melee initiating heroes, these blink stunners are not
that's his weakness. The Collapsus is kryptonite, but it has to get patched that way. If it gets patched like any other direction, 33 win share goes up versus Collapse.
Right? Yeah.
So your odds are still good. Like, you still rather have 33 because this guy has win shares against everybody in the scene except one dude. Like, that's insane to think about, actually.
Okay, but if Offlane Undying becomes the biggest thing, then Saberlight he is leaps and bounds. 33 hasn't played. He's only played one game of Undying.
I'm not gonna lie. I think that hero is so weird. I would probably still take 33's Undying. Like, I don't think that's a negative.
Like a month, and he'll figure out some.
Give him like 5 games, and he'll have a better build or something, right? Like, I don't even know, but. That is pretty crazy. I don't know if there's another player who has that. Maybe
How did this guy get to playing Offlane in the first place? Jesus Christ. Not playing any blink stunner. You couldn't do that 10 years ago. Well, sorry, guys. I'm not a blink stunning Offlaner. Like, what?
That's why I didn't add him to my team. I was not confident in the hero pool. I was like, how can you have an Offlaner who plays like Visage, Beast, Furion? I was like, what am I going to do with this? It's like 6 years ago,
Yeah.
Little did I know.
I mean, you just needed to hold on to him for 4 years and it would have been good.
Could have put him in contract jail.
That's true.
If only I had a massive monolithic org who didn't care about players' rights and could just lock everybody in contract jail.
That would be the route to go. Start locking down any pub players that you know that are like really good at just like micro heroes Offlane or whatever.
But I guess it worked out for Liquid in the end, so congrats.
I knew you were going to throw a shot at Liquid because I know you're not going to call out an actual org that puts on people in contract jail. So
I mean, the only one we know of is Spirit, I guess, right? With this like whole satanic nonsense. I don't even know if
Spirit,
that really
Yellow
counts.
Submarine, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. But like the whole CIS scene is like contract jail in a weird because like. But the thing is, they're all making bank, so I don't really know how much of a jail it is.
It's a really bougie ass jail cell, that's for sure. Yeah.
The thing is, there's no contract. There's no real contract jail in Dota because you'll just sit out and the team is fucked. So like, okay.
All right. Well, that closes up another episode of Not For Broadcast. Unless you have anything else you want to say, Avery, before we leave.
No. Next episode we'll do the power rankings of All Chat. Make sure to tune in for that. We will do a tier list of. In fact, we'll do a tier list of the episodes that they have tier listed my power rankings. So we'll discuss which of their rankings of my power rankings was the best, and we'll make a tier list of that. So make sure to tune in for that. That'll be next episode.
Okay. Would you like to predict what we're going to talk about for the next episode of All Chat?
You're probably going to rank my discussion on ranking you guys ranking me. That would be my guess in terms of the content steal.
Hey, thank you for watching, everybody. Goodbye.